All right, let's get into it. We all lean on our phones to get us where we're going, right? But there's this really fascinating, kind of secret story happening behind the scenes that makes it all work so flawlessly. So today, we're going to pull back that curtain and meet the unsung hero of navigation.
I mean, really think about it for a second. You're driving, you go into a tunnel, or maybe you're just walking between a bunch of tall skyscrapers in a city. And that little blue dot on your map, it just keeps on tracking you perfectly. How is that even possible? The satellite signals that GPS relies on have no way of reaching your phone down there.
And that is the whole secret right there. The navigation that you've got in your pocket is not a solo act. Not at all. It's actually a really clever partnership. This little tech team-up that keeps you on the right path, even when the star player has to sit on the bench for a bit.
So let's start with the system we all think we know, GPS. Or, to be a little more accurate, the Global Navigation Satellite System, or GNSS. It's an absolutely brilliant system, but, and this is a big but, it has one very specific, very critical weakness.
And this slide right here, it lays the whole problem out for us, perfectly. This chart is tracking a car that's just driving through a regular city. Now see all those black bars down at the bottom? Every single one of those is a moment the GPS signal just, poof, disappeared. Buildings, tunnels, even the metal roof of your own car can block those signals, causing these constant little dropouts.
So if GPS was working all by itself, all those little gaps would make for a choppy, jumpy, totally unreliable map. It's just not built for the messy, complex places we drive and walk through every single day. And that is the problem that needed a really, really smart solution.
So how do you fix it? Well, this is where our unsung hero makes its grand entrance. The backup plan, the partner that steps up the second GPS goes dark. It's called the Inertial Navigation System, or INS for short.
The INS is incredible because it's completely self-contained. The best way to think about it is like trying to navigate a room with your eyes closed. You can feel when you speed up or slow down, right? And you can feel when you turn left or right. That's exactly what an INS does, using tiny sensors called accelerometers and gyroscopes. And here's the most important part. It doesn't need to see the sky. It doesn't need to talk to a satellite. It just works anywhere.
So you see, these two systems are like the perfect odd couple. GPS is the star. It looks outward, is super accurate over the long haul, but it's a bit of a diva. It has to have a clear view of the sky. The INS, on the other hand, is the reliable partner. It's totally internal, it works anytime, anywhere, but it has its own fatal flaw. Over time, its tiny little errors start to add up, and it begins to, well, drift away from reality.
And you can see that drift happening right here on this slide. See how those lines just shoot upwards, getting steeper and steeper? That's the error growing out of control. A tiny miscalculation in a turn or a change in speed might not seem like much at first, but after a minute, then 2 minutes, those little errors compound, and suddenly your phone thinks you're a block away from where you actually are. So yeah, the INS is tough, but by itself, it's not a long-term fix.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question, right? You've got one system that's nearly perfect but disappears sometimes, and another system that's always on but gets less perfect with every passing second. How on earth do you combine those two to make one single super navigator?
While you need a brain for the operation, you need a mathematical mastermind that knows how to take the best parts of both systems and throw out the worst. And that brilliant brain is something called the Kalman filter.
Now don't let the name scare you, forget the complex math behind it. What the Kalman filter does is actually beautiful. It's basically a super smart algorithm that's constantly looking at the data from the GPS and the data from the INS and blending them together to figure out the most likely place you actually are. And that final answer, it's way more accurate than what either system could ever figure out on its own.
It's all happening in this constant, super fast loop. First, the filter uses the always-on INS to predict where you probably are right this second. It's basically making an educated guess. Then, whenever it can, it grabs a super precise measurement from the GPS. That's the ground truth. And finally, it takes that prediction and that measurement and it updates its belief, creating a new, much more accurate position. And at the same time, it corrects that pesky drift in the INS. Then it starts all over again. Predict, measure, update, over and over.
As one of the sources for this so perfectly puts it, this whole thing is a synergistic relationship. And that's the key word, synergistic. It's not just 1 + 1 = 2, it's more like 1 + 1 = 10. The whole is so much greater than the sum of its parts.
Okay, so what does this brilliant little partnership actually get us in the real world? Well, this is where it gets really cool, because the results are pretty dramatic. So first, take a look at the before picture.
That top curve shows the error of an INS just left to do its own thing. And look at that! In just 90 seconds, a minute and a half, the error has grown to over 50 meters. That's more than half a football field. You can't get turn-by-turn directions with that. It's totally useless.
But now, look at the aftershot. That bottom curve? That's the exact same INS, but this time, the Kalman filter is feeding it those constant little reality checks from the GPS. Look how it just tames that wild drift, keeping the errors super, super low and stable. That is the smooth, reliable blue line we see on our maps every day.
So when you put it all together, what do we get? Well, we get a system that fills in all the gaps when GPS cuts out. We get a continuous, smooth path instead of a jumping one. It even helps our phone lock onto the satellites faster when we come out of a tunnel. And ultimately, we get one single system that is both incredibly robust and incredibly precise, the best of both worlds.
This whole setup, this tightly coupled integration, is the invisible magic that just works. It's the real reason your phone can guide you through a crazy downtown, deep into a parking garage, and back out the other side without ever skipping a beat.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? This is just one story about two different technologies, each with its own weaknesses that come together to make something that's, well, almost perfect. So what other hidden partnerships, what other invisible team-ups are out there making the technology in our lives feel like magic?